Chief, hey, I thank you for doing this. You do a lot in the CrossFit space, and yeah, this is an honor and privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
How did you get into this thing?
Do you remember a website called Groupon?
Yes.
I had a Groupon for like a month,
No
unlimited
way.
CrossFit. And I went once and I was like, oh no, this is not for me. And on the last day of the trial, I went in to try and get my money's worth. I only went, I think I went, that was my second session in the month. And I was like, look, I can't keep going. And the owner of the gym was like, what? No way. Like, no, you need to keep coming to CrossFit. And so she got me signed up to a 6 month membership with like a special discount. And I was like, I can't pass up a deal. And that was it. It took about 3 months to probably learn the movements and some of the lingo and see some progress. And then I was a full blown Kool-Aid drinker.
That's crazy. I never would have guessed that, because I mean,
Yeah,
from the
funny.
from yeah, from the coaching side as well, right? You give so much information out there, and it was just like this chick speaks so much sense, man. Just
Yeah.
breaking it down to like layman's terms, which is we teach adult PE for Christ's sake. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
a
just
great way to put it.
well, it is, like it's herding cats. If you can coach kids, it's it's way easier than coaching adults. But it's
Hmm.
just adult PE, and yeah, I would never have guessed that like Groupon voucher got you into the gym,
That
man.
was it. I mean, I had a journey with my own kind of personal training and seeing personal trainers and going to group fitness. And I was in Auckland and I went to Les Mills and did all the Les Mills body pump and body attack
Mm.
classes for a long time. So I guess CrossFit was me looking for something new and exciting and different. And I'd seen, images of CrossFit women on, like Tumblr and Pinterest back when people kind of use those.
Oh,
And
gee.
so that was what piqued my interest. So I'd kind of seen it on the internet. And then, yeah, decided to give it a crack. And I definitely was not sold on my first session. Although I do remember thinking it was really nice when I went back in. I did a free trial. And when I went back in on the second session, people remembered my name. And I'd been
Mm.
going to this Les Mills gym, literally the one in Auckland City. I have some of my earliest memories being in the creche at that gym because my parents go to that gym. And
Mm.
it's like they knew the Millses. Like we would go on holidays with the Millses. It was just like I had this massively long history with this gym, and I would go to Les Mills and no one would know who I was. I would see the same trainers because I loved their particular classes. I would see the same people in the gym, and no one had any idea who I was. I was just
Mm.
invisible. And I went to two CrossFit classes and people remembered my name. And I was like mind blown. It was just a totally different experience in that social sense. And that was, I think, what probably kept me going back because I just really liked the people, and you can't say no to nice people, right? Like, so I think, it can be cheesy when people talk about like the community and the social aspect, but I think CrossFit has become probably more important to me because of that than the fitness. And I mean, the fitness is great, and I think it's super important, and it's a big part of my value system, but the social circle, the connections, the human element is probably more important to me at this stage.
Oh, I completely agree. I kind of go on about it all the time that we're just facilitators. Yeah, like one, we're
Mm-hmm.
educators as well, right? Just hey, here's an air squat, here's like a kettlebell. This
Mm-hmm.
is how we probably want to put it above head so we don't smash ourselves in the face, and stuff like that, right? But we're also just facilitating the growth of characters, right? Like people are just growing as human beings, and I think that social aspect kind of does it for us essentially. Like we've just got to create this environment where it's super open, super down to earth, soft skill orientated, and then people just kind of grow on their own. It's like we just water the plant, and then you come back the next day and it's huge. You're like, wait, what the fuck just happened to this
Yeah, you
plant?
get the environment right and the plant thrives, right?
Mm.
That's kind of what it comes down to.
And that's it. That's the social aspect, right? And I
Definitely.
think that's probably one of the main factors why CrossFit has done so well. It's just people remembering each other's names, remembering whether their mom or dad is doing okay in the hospital, remembering what they do for a living, asking their dog about their dog, or just random stuff like that, rather than like, hey, you ready for another spin class? It's
Yeah,
like,
and I think that might be what differentiated it from other fads or trends in the fitness industry. And I think, people probably still look at CrossFit as like, it's a fad or it's a trend or, it's losing popularity. But I think that it's been around for 20 years, 20
Mm.
plus years. It was online in 2001. It was being run in a gym in Santa Cruz for many years before that. So it's kind of stood the test of time at this point, and we've got affiliates that have been around for 10 years plus. And I think to say that, it's a fad or a trend is to miss the fact that there's something special about it. And I think, just like you said, it's the social aspect for some reason, and I don't know why, but maybe it's because CrossFit actually valued that part of it. And, while other programs like F45 or like, any of the like curves or whatever, some of those female gyms like weight loss, Weight Watchers, it's like there's to a degree, maybe some attention to the connection between people, but it felt like CrossFit got it different. And maybe it was because we were doing stuff that was really hard. And
Mm.
so you just end up with this group of people that you're all suffering together and being challenged and being made to feel like a rookie and a student and vulnerable. And and it just kind of, yeah, you just connect to people differently. So I do wonder if that has been the thing that has been, it's almost like the underlying force behind it has really just been the way people connect. And that's what's propelled it forwards.
Yeah, I think so too. We connect over common struggle. We relate to people and we
Exactly.
we empathize with them. You're like, "But this sucks, man. Like 45 thrusters and 45 pull-ups, you crazy?" And people are doing it in less than 2 minutes. You're fucking crazy. Like there is
Yeah,
there
you're
is
like,
no
get out
way
of
of
here,
like
leave,
that's not
shut the
happening.
front door.
And then someone brings a bin next to you and takes the lid off. I'm like, if you're gonna throw up, do it in there. You're like, what is going on in here?
Yeah.
It's this weird environment, but people get sucked into one another, and they
Mm,
now create this kind of community. I know it's a word that's thrown around a lot, but it happens, and it's so beautiful to watch, right, and be the facilitator. A lot of the time,
mm,
coaches kind of get it wrong, in my opinion, and think they're at the front to be at the front, right? You're at the front to be at the back. You're literally just kind of out at the back at BFI, let people do their thing. And yeah, we need to get in there and coach. Yeah, fine, no problem. But in terms of the social aspect, let people create those connections. Sometimes you got to give people a little push, because we're all introverted at heart, or at least most of us are, but we're not there to fuel our own ego. It's there for the people and create that community. And then we just kind of intertwine like a rope, right? And then that rope
mm,
just gets
mm.
stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I think it's something where, the gyms that have got it right, it's as simple as the owners and the coaches set an example.
Mm.
Little things like, saying hi and saying goodbye to everybody as they walk in and out of the door each class, and knowing their names, and having big long chats and talking to the new person, finding out, how their dog was after the dog was sick, or how the kid's going at the new school, or knowing what, the husband does for work. It's those things that I think coaches can really demonstrate. We talk about practicing what we preach in movement, in terms of, I guess, this idea of virtuosity, but I think that even expands to a broader sense, in a broader sense, with talking to people and
Mm-hmm.
connecting and doing the community thing. And you can walk into different gyms and get a sense of different, I guess it's different culture based on the example that's being set by the coaches and the owner. And so every gym is really just a reflection of the owner, whether that's a positive thing or a negative thing, comes down to probably the top. It trickles down. There's that trickle down effect, right? And yeah, I think it is that you don't have to push it, you don't have to force it. It happens on its own. But you can certainly undermine it if you set a bad example.
Yeah, I think that's the base. Like we kind of look at it objectively, and we be like, we're in the business of fitness. And I would then argue like we're not, we're in the business of people. We just use the medium of fitness, right? Like we just use barbells and stuff, and because we want to wear trackies to work, and we're probably not gonna do well in a 9 to 5 or an accountancy job. We say too many fuck, shit, and
Speak for
piss,
yourself.
like, well, for myself anyway.
I
Chuck me
absolutely
under the
agree
bus.
with you. There's no way.
Like,
I did an office job for about 6 weeks. It was an internship after university. And I swear to God, I was like falling asleep every single day.
oh,
It was
dude.
my hardest job at that internship was trying to stay awake in this
Hmm.
office in the city. It was awful.
Oh, I mean, I'll hold my hands up. I'll speak for me, right? But I know I'm the world's worst. I can't do that shit, man.
Nope.
Like I got a brain that's like, oh yeah, what's next?
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic as a motherfucker, and I say too many. I swear like a sailor. You know what I mean? So I'm not the best in those environments. But I think we're in a business of people. You know, it's those soft
Yeah.
skills. Like I think you can get a. Granted, you need some sort of qualification to get in there. You need a foundation of knowledge. Okay, cool. Let's see that box is ticked. We know something about the human body and how to move. Right, cool. We got that. But I think the vast majority of this thing is communication and how we create that vibe and the soft skills in people and just, hey team, how are we doing today? You okay? Is it a go day or is it a no day? You know, how's things happening at work? Are you stressed out? It's Thursday today, usually an active recovery day for a lot of folk. Are we feeling a little bit lethargic? Are we like dragging our feet along the floor? Are you feeling good? Shit like that, right? Rather than just like, oh, I'm going to work on this periodizing, undulating curve and I'm going to, you're like, okay, Mr. Science, you know, these people don't care. Guys, I want you to hit triple extension. They don't fucking know what it is, nor do they care. All right. So it's just like, guys, jump higher.
Mm.
You know, it's just make it so simple and personable for these folk, and you just see the smile on their face, right? And that's why we do what we do, so they can walk out the shutter door with a huge smile on their face.
Yeah, and I think it was Greg Glassman who said, you know, it's a business of relationships. And you know, you can probably look at it where there's two spectrums present, and one of them is an incredibly highly skilled, educated coach with all the pieces of paper, and someone who's, you know, never done any coaching before in their life but wants to try and is maybe not very skilled. And then the other spectrum would be someone who's really good at creating relationships and someone who's not very good at that.
Mm.
And I would argue that you'd probably, yeah, potentially, and you know, maybe you have to think about the business as a whole, would potentially have more success with someone who's higher on the relationship spectrum or scale than the person who's more skilled. Just in terms of if you want long-term success in a gym, running a business, coaching people, the relationship has to be there. And without it, it doesn't matter how skilled you are. It doesn't matter how many credentials or, you know, however many letters you have after your name. If you're missing the people factor and the ability to connect with people, I think you'd fall short of meeting the mark in a lot of CrossFit gyms.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, I think you can teach pretty much anything, anyone, pretty much anything, but you can't teach people to give a shit. You know, if you really don't want to be there and you don't have that, like your heartbeat is going through your mouth and you're like, I just want to help these folk and just get to know them and I'm just having a good time. Like you can't teach that, man. Like that's okay. You know, maybe you could be work well in the operations side. Maybe you do really good in the CDP environment and you kind of coach the coaches, you know, and you're less in front of people. Like it doesn't mean you can't be in the fitness industry. It just means maybe you're not kind of the face of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all right. Everyone's got their own niche.
Yeah.
How did you get into coaching it?
I had been working in I guess, on the front desk, really. One of my jobs, I was saving up in between living in the US. I'd been living in Orange County studying, and then I was back in New Zealand saving up to go back with a graduate visa, and live in LA. And so I had this like kind of intermittent period where I was saving money and I was working the front desk of this beautiful tennis facility, actually,
Mm.
that had, you know, a gym and had all this amazing stuff. So I was experienced working the front desk of like a gym. And when I was back in LA, there was a CrossFit affiliate that had opened up maybe 3 or 4 blocks from where I was living. So it was walking distance, which was perfect. And so I got in there and started working the front desk and was just like, I think my official title was like membership manager or something random like that. And what happens to anyone who is around a box long enough is they usually get asked to coach. So
Yeah.
I think it was something that I was interested in doing. And I'd actually already got my level one. So I had an opportunity to get my level one pop up right before moving back to the US, where one of the guys from the gym that I started at in Auckland had signed up and last minute pulled the pin. He wasn't able to do it. And so we'd gotten in touch with CrossFit HQ and just said, hey, do you mind if I take his spot? And it was a bit of a risk because I literally had spent 6 months saving to go back to America. And then I was going to dump, $1,000 on this 2-day course. And my parents had said, no, don't do it. And I'd said, okay, that's probably sensible. And then I went back to them and was like, no, I really want to do this. Like, I actually, this is kind of something I'm really enjoying. Plus, I spun it as, if this internship doesn't work out that I'm doing, which was, it was in US that I was doing that internship that I mentioned, then I could fall back on coaching or working at a CrossFit gym. That could be something that I could potentially do if I'm desperate.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of in a CrossFit gym with my level one, already working the front desk, and they started me just shadowing a couple classes. And then, before you know it, I was basically a full-time coach. And I left the internship and was just hanging around, talking to people about snatches and pull-ups and Fran and doing the whole thing. And it kind of snowballed. I did my level two, maybe it would have been about a year after I did my level one, or maybe less. It was pretty close after doing my level one, so it might have been more like 6 months. But I did that in the US, and I'd been full-time coaching for about 4 or 3 months at that point. So I was really went straight into the deep end with coaching. I think a lot of people do a little bit of shadowing, the odd hour here and there. They're often working another job, but I luckily was just in a position where I could just do it full-time. So got my level two and then started interning on seminar stuff. So I started coaching in 2012. I started interning on seminar stuff in 2013 and then officially got the gig at the beginning of 2014. And then, I basically was a full-time coach in gyms for, man, it would have been like 8 years, maybe. Yeah, it was a long time. And now I'm still coaching, but I've transitioned to more online stuff and have spent a fairly good amount of time in the nutrition side of things, funnily enough, which I only got interested in doing because nutrition scared the living daylights out of me when I had to talk about it on the CrossFit level one. It was this topic that I was like, oh, I'm so intimidated about this stuff. I just don't get it. I'm so scared. I don't want to talk about it. And so it really motivated me to go down that rabbit hole and get really familiar and get really comfortable with experimenting with food, understanding it better, treating myself as a bit of a lab and doing all the drills and doing all the, all the progressions that we do with gymnastics or weightlifting or whatever thing we're trying to get better at in the gym. I just did that, but the nutrition version, and then started working online as a coach. So here we are. It was something that was never planned. And I don't know if there are many CrossFit coaches that probably would plan to be a full-time trainer for, their career. But it just happened, and it was a really enjoyable thing. And I think I was lucky to come from a family that were really supportive of do what you love and do what you enjoy and pursue that thing. And there's no right way to live your life and no wrong way to do it. I was never, I never had parents that were like, you should be a doctor or you should be a lawyer or you should run a business. It was always very much like, what do you enjoy? Do that thing.
It's definitely one hell of a way to pay the bills. That.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? Like, it's not bad at all.
I mean, the hours are long, and you usually end up doing 50% more work on the paperwork side or the behind the scenes, the admin, than you've been paid for, and you equate it out. You're not making a fucking crazy amount of money, but it is one hell of a way to make your living. Like, you learn so much, and I mean, I say it quite regularly. It saved my life just because of the connections that I've created from people, right? And I learned from you guys. Whether it's fellow coaches, whether it's the athletes that end up coming in front of me and listening to me in front of the whiteboard. But like, I learned from you. So like, we just happened to stumble into a gym, get the level one, get the level two, carry on progressing. It's like, yeah, that's fine. We might know something more than you guys in these four walls of the gym, but then most of the time, like we kind of touched upon, or definitely for myself, we're not the greatest outside of the gym. You're like, yeah, well, we just learn from people, and it's one hell of a way to make your living. Like, it's tough, but I feel privileged.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody would agree with that statement and I don't think it's exclusive to CrossFit gym owners,
No, no,
but
no.
it's certainly small business or gyms that, whether they're CrossFit affiliates or not, like it's a tough gig, but it's certainly, I guess it's almost like I'd prefer to do that than to be doing the 9 to 5, trying to climb the corporate ladder, dealing with other people that I'm not aligned with. Like there's so many things that maybe would potentially make us sit here on this side of the fence and go, oh, the grass kind of looks greener over there. But I think the reality is that this is actually the side with the green grass, way
Mhm.
greener, way greener, and a better deadlift number.
100%. And especially for us, right? You got to understand yourself. How do you have a little bit of self-awareness and be like, yo, am I suited for that one? Am I suited for this one? Or am I suited
Mhm.
for comedy or whatever you want to do, right? It's just figure that out and then just go for it. And I guess something that you've highlighted is you feel like you enjoy something, you go all in. It's like, oh, the nutrition stuff scares you. Then you went all in with the nutrition. You fell into the CrossFit scene. You went all in. You got level 2 within like 3 or 4 months, right? What makes you want to do that? What makes you want to go all into something that kind of scares you?
I mean, I'd probably just argue that I'm a little bit obsessive. But I guess, I think like with the experience people have with CrossFit, the more you put in, the more you get out.
Mm,
And so you might find it challenging, or things might be overwhelming, or it might seem intimidating to take on the task of whatever your goal is. But when you get into it and you start getting the ball rolling, it might be a couple of weeks or it could be a couple of months, and patience is key. But once you start getting the reward and the outcome that you desire, it's sort of it's like a why not? Why not go further with something, and why not see where it leads you, and why would you choose the half ass version instead of the full ass version? It's like I don't know if there is another option to me, maybe. I think if I were to do something, and maybe it is actually just a reflection of me being a little bit all or nothing with just things in general. But I certainly believe that if I'm going to do something, I might as well go all in. Then, you know, I guess put it. It's almost like I would rather just jump into the ice bath in one quick movement, then put a toe in, then put a second toe in, put a foot in. I'm just like, no, rip the band-aid off.
mhm,
So I think that that's probably just an approach that I have in general, um, with everything. So I guess it expresses itself in the same way with training, with coaching, with nutrition, with whatever it is that I'm exploring at the time. And it doesn't hurt that it's stuff that I enjoy, right? Like I think it's pretty clear to me when there's something that I don't enjoy because I procrastinate and I put it off and I don't want to do it. And, take that with a bit of a grain of salt, because there are some things that I don't enjoy that I still push myself to do. And I think that's important. But you can identify the stuff that doesn't really, I guess, doesn't align with your values, or stuff that's important to you. And for me, I do stuff that I enjoy. So it makes the work easier,
mm.
at least as easy as hard work can be.
Yeah, it's still going to be hard, right?
Yeah, there's no escape for
Yeah,
that.
we call it hard work for a
No
reason.
one,
It's bloody hard.
yeah, no one's exempt from the hard work, right?
100%. Like the only reason why I asked is that I'm exactly the same. If you're gonna do something,
Mm,
you might as well go all the way. And it's I think about the quote from Van Gogh a lot of like in the pursuit of my art, I've lost my mind. And we
mm,
we kind of look at balance being this euphoric state that we need to be able to strive towards, right? But I think balance is probably needed in balance as well. There needs to be something that we kind of just eat the apple and the core and just fucking go for it. If you're gonna fuck something, you might as well fuck the shit out of it at the end of the day. Like just run into that wall and see what happens. And sometimes we lay back flat on our back and be like, what the bloody hell was that? I failed in a fire of flames. And you're like,
mm,
that's okay. Maybe you just collect that scar and the lesson that goes with it, get up, dust yourself off, carry on walking. And
mm,
there's certain things where you only truly learn some lessons if you go all in my opinion. With some people really good at balance. Some people are really good at just this. They clock in, they clock out, and then they go do the hobby, and that's what they want to do. And I'm like, fantastic. And I'm like half jealous because I can't do it. It's like I got to get to the gym at whatever time in the morning, stay till whatever time at night, and we got to do our thing, right? You've got to send yourself a little bit mental and be scanning the room and be like, okay, this is my thing. This is an art form, and that's what I find coaching is. It's an art form through
Mm,
the medium of fitness, and the people are
mm.
just these organic chess pieces that are just moving around, and we're just sending ourselves a little loopy just to help these folk.
Mm.
But again, it's a good way to pay your bills. Privilege.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, the way I describe it, I'm probably going to put a few people off coaching, but whatever. How's seminar stuff, mate?
How is it
Yeah,
going? Or
how's it going? How'd you enjoy it?
yeah, it's good. I mean, I do less seminars than I have in the past, probably prior to COVID or even to prior to COVID. I was doing them probably 2 to 3 times a month, and now it's maybe every 2 to 3 months, one seminar. Um, it's something I really love and enjoy, but it's hard to run a business and do other things and train and travel every weekend. It kind of became a lifestyle that wasn't aligned with some of the other things that I had going on in my life. So as much as I love them and I would love to do more of them, I do deprioritize being out of routine, and anything that causes that, which means that seminars have to get occasionally pushed out, which is just, part of figuring out how to make everything work. And like you said, if you're all in on something, then that means that you probably have to make sacrifices and compromises elsewhere.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a traveling lifestyle, right? Like it's the road every weekend, literally.
Yeah, and like, we're probably lucky in that we go to the same cities, the same hotels, the same parts of town. We have rental cars. It's like, it's doable. But I think any job where there's a high amount of travel is going to just challenge your ability to be the healthiest version of yourself. Because it's just the nature of it. It's like, you're out of your own house. You're typically not cooking. You're probably eating food out of an airport, and you're probably not sleeping that well. And, it's like there's all these little things where if you're repeatedly exposing yourself to this environment that's totally out of your control, then it's going to impact your overall health and well-being. And if you're like me, training to do semifinals or the games through the different phases that I've been through, then it's just something that you can't do. You just can't. And no amount of money would make me want to do it, because I would rather sacrifice all the money in the world than sacrifice my goals.
Mhm.
And so it's just what happens. There's just the different seasons that you have to go through. So yeah, that was probably what I was challenged with early on. And I sort of pulled away a little bit from seminars. COVID hit, obviously seminars came to a complete halt.
Mm.
And then we've gotten back into seminars. But again, with running the business and also living in different cities, I've kind of moved around a little bit. I've just done a few, doing them more infrequently at the moment.
Sorry, man. Like you said, it's seasons.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
about
And
that a
it's nice
lot.
to still be involved, but be able to kind of have a life that's not all about travel all the time. Like I still get to do them, and I still get to meet a lot of people and do that coaching stuff. But I'm still most of the time in routine.
Mm. I think about that a lot, man, with chapters and pushing the emphasis onto other things, and then maybe the year comes and you reassess and you go do something else, or maybe it's a month by month basis. For me, it's usually a couple months, and I'm like,
Mm,
I need to go in, and then I kind of home back out again and be like, oh shit, okay, let's go do the other thing a little bit more, and then the other thing a little bit more, and you spin in multiple plates, right? And I think again, it touches on a bit of the balance. That's how us obsessive mental people that are into fitness kind of find some balance, because it's like, all right, well, we've got so much going on. I'm going to go all in on this, and then I have to take a step back and be like, yo, what am I doing next? Maybe I do one seminar every 3 to 4 months. Like you said, right? You're still part of the community. You're still cracking on, still getting
yeah,
it done. And I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a great way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, like you said, there are different phases of life, and it's nice to almost let go of things like calendar months and calendar years and just look at what season you're in.
Yeah,
And not abide by the rules of, well, it's January and I need to get
yeah,
XYZ done. It's like, no, you actually get to decide that. You could look at your year in terms of 12-week sections or segments if you wanted to, or you could look at just going by feel. And when you feel like you've got the energy to do more, do more. And when you don't, do less. And that's totally okay. I think having this set output for a set amount of time or trying to accomplish XYZ by this arbitrary deadline doesn't really make a lot of sense, not only in terms of work and training and food, but just with like, life, like just being a
yeah.
human being. It's like we're pretty hard to predict and life throws curveballs. I think, COVID showed us that pretty well. So yeah, I like the idea of just going with what works. I'm a bit of a go with the flow person,
Mm.
which sometimes, funnily enough, I try to actually not be too go with the flow because I can go with other people's flows too much, and I want to figure out what my flow is. So it's just striking that balance.
That's it. Balance. Spot on. I'm a bit the same. Whatever, we'll get to it when we get to it. And sometimes that means you work 24/7, and other times you're like, I'll get there. You're like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
no,
And
no,
I think
you've
that's
just
when I
gotta.
do my best work, and it's like when you are excited and you're pumped and you're energized to do it, go for like just stay up all night, do whatever you need to do at the time.
Mm,
But don't set that as your new benchmark for productivity. It's like that's potentially reckless.
yeah.
So it's like, hey, the benchmark is going to change depending on where you're at. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, when we're talking about food and training, which I do a lot with my clients. People are like, well, I did a really bad job at this and I should have been better with my squats this morning and I haven't eaten very well. And it feels like it's coming from a I fucked up
Mm,
place and I suck. And the reality is they've got two kids that are sick. They've got like some super stressful project due at the end of the week with work, and they've had an argument with their partner about grocery shopping again. And it's like suddenly when you zoom out and take in the full picture, you realize that, like we talked about before, it's really just that you're a product of the environment. And when you can be compassionate for these uncontrollable things that are happening and adjust and adapt to that better, you will actually be able to get through that in a way that doesn't bring unnecessary suffering on top of a life that's already challenging. And so I think that's something that, when people can factor it in and be practice being self-compassion, like having more self-compassion according to what's actually going on in the big picture,
mm.
it serves people really, really well.
Agreed. Agreed. Boss, I got three questions.
Yeah, go.
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Um, I read this, and I think it might have been like an Instagram post or maybe another Tumblr. I don't know. It's an old thing that I've seen a long, long time ago somewhere on the internet, and it was just a phrase that said the purpose in life is not to give. Hang on. Oh man, if I blank on this, that's going to be really, really bad. The purpose of life. Oh no, I've totally lost it. It's like something along the lines of um, the purpose in life is to give life purpose. And to me, that translates to you don't need to go out and find your purpose. You create your own purpose and you can be as intentional and deliberate about it as you like. And there's no right or wrong. It's just up to you and what you want out of life. There's not some like mysterious place that you're going to go and get all the answers.
Mm,
So I remember reading that somewhere, and then I actually read it in the book. I don't know if you've read it. It wasn't my favorite book, but I found a similar version of the quote called "The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari."
I've heard of it. I've never read it.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a fairly well-known book. I didn't like it. Like it wasn't, top of my list in terms of books, but a version of that quote was in there. So I have a funny feeling it might originally be from that guy.
Mm, I like that a lot.
Yeah, the purpose in life is to give life purpose.
Mm, it's a nice little snippet.
Hmm.
What's the worst piece of life advice you ever received?
Um, I've received a lot of bad advice.
You're in the club.
Um, I think a lot of the like I don't know if there's like one particular thing that I've been told and I've, done. Um, but I get a lot of conflicting advice from my parents, which is entertaining to me because I think I can probably manipulate that. My mom and dad are separated. And so if I go to dad and talk to him about wanting to travel more or take a risk with money or do something big, he's always super pro taking risk and doing the big scary thing. If I talk to my mom, she's far more conservative and much more of a I guess a bit more risk adverse, and she'll think through things very differently. So I get this interesting contradictory advice about something where I almost can gain two people's perspective on something, which ultimately is very valuable to me. And I usually don't take either person's advice, but I find something in the middle.
Yeah.
So I guess if there's, bad advice, I probably get extreme ends of the spectrum from either of my parents. And so I tend to not do those things and try and find something in the middle. And that usually reflects something that's more true and authentic to me.
Yeah. Try and find the middle ground, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then the other bad advice that I hate is whenever you ask for a recommendation for food, this isn't bad advice. This is just something that annoys me. Whenever you're at a restaurant or a cafe and you're like, tell me what I should get, I'm deciding between these two things. And someone is like, oh, I've never had them. I don't know. I'm like, man, you work here. You're literally the person that's like, you should be able to give me this information. So I don't think that's advice. It's when I'm trying to get advice and someone will flat out be like, no, sorry,
Mm.
I don't know. And I'm
Figure it
like,
out.
come on, this is like your one job.
Yeah. Just lie to me. Just say the
Yeah,
apple
I'm like,
toast is
just
good or something.
so whenever someone gives me like you need to get this, this is the best, it's going to change your life, you're really going to like it. I'm always like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much for like making that decision. That's all I really wanted. I just wanted someone else to make the decision for me.
Yeah. All right, Chief. Last question. What are the 3 words you'd tell your younger self?
Um, I maybe 2 words, keep going.
Mm.
If I have to make it three, just keep going, maybe.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of things that I stopped that I'm like, why didn't I just keep going? And whether it was because I wasn't sure that I would succeed or I felt like I wasn't where I wanted to be, a lot of those problems would have been resolved if I just kept going.
I love that, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate your time, Chief. I'm gonna have to throw down whenever
Absolutely.
I get
Thanks,
over
Alex.
to the Outback.
Yeah, amazing. Come over. It's
Mate, that's
warmer
it.
and drier.
It's a lot warm. Mate, you have a great afternoon and we'll speak
Thank
soon.
you. All right. Talk soon.
Thanks, boss. Bye, everybody.